Is it 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Should be 5 minutes?
About 5 minutes.
Sweet. Very nice.
So,
Thank you. Hare Krishna. We're joined by, yes,
there you are, Caru. I was just going to say, we can't see you. Okay.
you can see me. We're joined by Kapilji, Govindadev, Kamo. Good morning, Kamo. Rakesh, Sundari Priya, Amrita Sundari, Ras Vilas. Rakesh cooked a noon offering yesterday for the deities, and it included the most interesting plum juice made from the plums of our own tree and spiced with black pepper. It was unbelievable. Never had anything quite like it in my life, but it was memorable. And then after the offering, his daughter Subhi sang the arti. That was good. And then I was watching the temple while Govinda did a puja, and Omkar was doing his schoolwork between 4 and 6. And I had a young couple visit who had just moved to Salt Lake City from Arizona. His name was Waldo, and her name was Brianna. And right off the bat, they told me that they wanted to find out, or he told me he wanted to find out as much as he could about bhakti. And I said, well, how did you hear about bhakti, and how did you get so enthused? So he's listening to a very popular podcast. In fact, Thomas here at the temple told me he listens to it. I listened to it one time too. It's by Raghunath, or Ray Kappo, who used to be the Krishna head of the Straight Edge Band Shelter and also was a yogi. It's got thousands and thousands of followers. And this young man was interested in bhakti because of this podcast. And his girlfriend just seemed to be, I don't know, she was just standing there. She wasn't saying anything. We were talking about bhakti. I turned to her and I said, what do you think about all this? You know, turns out she's entering University of Utah as a PhD candidate in physics. she's also interested in bhakti, but from the scientific point of view. So they got a couple of books, and then right after that, a lady came. She was German. She was 78 years old, and she was married to a professor of religion at the University of Utah. He taught religion for years and years and years. His name was Robert something, and he was run over. He was riding his bike a year ago, and he got hit and then died as a result of his injury. So she's been coping with life without her husband. And she came and she bought a Krishna book and a Bhagavad Gita. She sat in the lobby for about an hour reading them and asking questions. So there's a lot of preaching in Salt Lake City. And I think in Spanish Fork we get a lot of people who come for recreational purposes, for tourism or school or festivals. So it's an entirely different mood. The people that walk through the door in Salt Lake City, a lot of them are either seriously inquisitive or they're suffering and they want some answers. So I got a really good dose of incredible preaching. Another young boy came later on, young boy, 22, good looking, and he said he's been listening to Radha Swami online. So all this online stuff during the pandemic is starting to get traction. We're starting to get noticed amongst the younger generation, I believe. Does anybody, I just shared with you, does anybody else have anything good or bad to share about their week before we go into the Bhagavatam verse?
Mine was pretty ordinary, so nothing much to share.
I know George's daughter left his law firm to go out on her own. I saw a post from Jessica Pratt Wilder, who was leaving Jones and Waldo, and I thought, well, Jessica Pratt, that sounds like some connection with Govinda Dave. So
Now we're happy to get rid of her.
that's not what you were telling me a few minutes ago.
No, kind of a sad thing, but I knew this was coming for a long time, so this was not an emotion-filled week for me. I had a very busy week at work. I had the busiest week that I've had since the pandemic started. It was like, whoa, I'm like really working this week. So I'm very happy to be with you all this morning.
We're glad that you're with us as well. And anybody else have anything? Anything that you're dealing with? Any challenges? Any triumphs, successes, failures? They say when you share a triumph, it makes it twice as good. When you share a frustration or a challenge, it makes it half as tough.
So, Prabhuji, my visa was pending for approval for last 4 or 5 months. And with this pandemic situation, I got an RFE, request for evidence. But I was a little tense for a day or two. And then I was like, whatever is going to happen is going to happen for good. But this week I got my visa approved, Prabhuji, for next 3 years.
Haribo!
Hari Bol.
Jai ho!
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Shout out to Rakesh. Haribo!
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm so glad. We're learning more and more about you and your depth of knowledge and your enthusiasm. We're looking forward to your being with us for the foreseeable future, so we can get more of your qualities rub off on us.
I'm looking forward to learn more and more, Prabhuji. I don't know if I have any knowledge, but I am definitely trying to learn from all of you, all of the Vaishnavas here.
Right. And Govinda Bhakti, he's overdue for hearing from the INS, so he sent a letter of inquiry recently asking, I was supposed to have heard from you 2 or 3 months ago, but I didn't, so he's trying to push the issue, see if he can get a definite answer. He's doing a good job there. He's really doing a good job, and we hope that outcome will be favorable.
Let's hope for that, yeah.
And as you know, Rishabh is away for a month, so Onkar and Govinda Bhakta holding things down themselves, and they really appreciate things like Rakesh coming and doing the noon offering. Last Saturday, Hitesh and Arti did the noon offering. Paki's always available. Paki's just a personification of helpfulness. So it's especially appreciated the way that you all are stepping in and helping while those two are holding down the fort all by themselves. Amrita Sundari, do you want to read the verse and get us started with some knowledge,
Yes, Prabhuji.
some nectar?
Yes, Prabhuji. Tanna sushushumananam arhasi anganuvarnitum yasyavataru bhutanam shemaya cha bhavaya cha. O Sutta Goswami, we are eager to learn about the personality of Godhead and his incarnations. Please explain to us those teachings imparted by previous masters, acharyas, for one is uplifted both by speaking them and by hearing them.
Can I mention one thing? If you look up in the upper left-hand side of the screen, there'll be a message that either says turn on original sound or turn off original sound. Do you see that?
Oh, it's only for people who are using their computers. If they are,
I think, Amrita Sundari, are you not using your computer?
I am.
So do you see that sign, turn off original sound or turn on original sound?
No, Prabhuji.
I don't
Should
see
be in
it.
the upper left-hand side, upper left-hand side.
It
Upper
just
left-hand.
says live on Facebook.
Okay, it should be to the left of that. It should be to the left of the live on Facebook sign.
It just says Charu Prabhu's personal meeting room.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't give me any.
Maybe it's only for the host. I don't know.
Yeah,
Okay. Sorry to interrupt.
that's okay. So, in this verse, the sages want to hear from Krishna, from Sutta Goswami about Krishna and his incarnations. And the other day I was hearing a lecture by Urmila Mataji, and she said there is a verse in the second canto, I forget which chapter and which one, but it seems Radhika Raman Prabhu told her, according to Jiva Goswami, every scripture has, like the verse that defines its scope. I forget the technical term for it. And then there are verses which give the conclusion of that scripture. And in the second canto, Shukdev Goswami gives the conclusion to Maharaj Parikshit that hearing about Krishna helps you attain perfect knowledge. And it also gives you the perfect consciousness to process this knowledge and to practice it. So basically, the conclusion of Srimad Bhagavatam is to hear Srimad Bhagavatam, and especially in association like this. And this is what exactly they're wanting to know. They want to hear from Sutta Goswami about Krishna and his incarnations. And as we know, Krishna's incarnations are unlimited. So they are ready for a long time of Shravanam Kirtanam. And the two words they use, Shemaya and Bhavaya. Though the English translation for the word Shemaya says for good, but we know from 9.22, Yoga Shemam Vahamyaham. Krishna says, I protect what you have and I give you what you lack. So basically, hearing about Krishna from authorized personality in association of devotees, it's always Shemaya for you and Bhavaya for you. It will fulfill your lack that you have, and it will preserve whatever good you have. So, yeah.
Do you want to read the purport also?
Okay. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The conditions for hearing the transcendental message of the absolute truth are set forth herein. The first condition is that the audience must be very sincere and eager to hear, and the speaker must be in the line of disciplic succession from the recognized acharya. The transcendental message of the absolute is not understandable by those who are materially absorbed. Under the direction of a bona fide spiritual master, one gradually becomes purified. Therefore, one must be in the chain of disciplic succession and learn the spiritual art of submissive hearing. In the case of Sutta Goswami and the sages of Naimisharanya, all these conditions are fulfilled because Srila Sutta Goswami is in the line of Srila Vyasadeva, and the sages of Naimisharanya are all sincere souls who are anxious to learn the truth. Thus, the transcendental topics of Lord Shri Krishna's superhuman activities, his incarnation, his birth, appearance or disappearance, his forms, his names, and so on are easily understandable because all requirements are fulfilled. Such discourses help all men on the path of spiritual realization.
So, has anybody looked at this verse and made any notes that they want to share with us at this point? There's one point that jumps right out at us here in the purport.
Yeah, I took a look, but not made any notes. I think the thing that I love the most is, as they say, that the moment you start, your learning stops. So the hearing is also imperative, and especially as Mataji said, that in this set of format where there is so much for you to learn, the only qualification, but the only word is not appropriate. The qualification needed is the eagerness and willingness to learn, basically. So I think that's my focus, is that I think if you really want to enjoy, cherish, and learn, you need to be open for hearing.
In the fourth chapter, Krishna says, evam param para praptam imam vijayasya sakalanena yoga nashta para. He says that he originally imparted this knowledge to Vivaswan. Vivaswan gave it to Manu. Manu gave it to Ikshvaku, and it came down through the chain of the cyclic succession. And that's the way it is meant to be received. But he also says that in due course of time, nashta, the chain was broken. And the way it gets broken is the original knowledge gets degraded. You tell someone, they passes it to a third party, and they tell it to someone. And eventually, over the course of time, degradation takes place. And so the knowledge, in its purity, some or other got broken, and therefore Krishna sees the need to re-impart it to Arjuna on this particular occasion. And in fact, Prabhupada points out in the purport there that when Prabhupada wrote his introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, I think he mentions how many different editions? 800, did he say?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, and now I heard it's even 3,000. There have been even more. And not one of them is the authorized. It's not one of them is Krishna's Bhagavad Gita. Every one of them are unauthorized according to the chain of disciplic succession. He says, Prabhupada says, there are innumerable interpretations rendered by different mundane scholars, and none of them accept Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And what they're doing, Prabhupada says, is making a good business on the words of Krishna. They could write their own book, but no one would read it. So they published their Bhagavad Gita. They published their Bhagavad Gita because the Bhagavad Gita is famous. And so they make a good business of publishing their Bhagavad Gita as if the Bhagavad Gita could belong to anybody, as if the Bhagavad Gita wasn't just purely the words and instructions of Krishna. Prabhupada says that spirit is a demoniac spirit because demons don't believe in God. They simply enjoy the property of the Supreme. So Bhagavad Gita is Krishna's property. It's the words of Krishna to Arjuna. Arjuna is Krishna's property in the sense that they're eternal friends and companions. So if someone takes Krishna's property, the words of the Bhagavad Gita, and then twists them according to their own interpretation, then that is a demoniac tendency. There are 2,000 different examples of that in the English language. And so that means that at the time Prabhupada came, the disciplic succession was broken, just as it had been when he spoke to Arjuna. And Prabhupada himself reestablished the teaching by presenting the authorized translation and commentary entitled The Bhagavad Gita as It Is. Otherwise, he says that a treatise of philosophical speculation is just a waste of time. Gandhi had his version of the Gita where he tried to make a conclusion of nonviolence, as if there wasn't a war going on, as if there weren't arrows being shot, as if there weren't lives being lost, as if there wasn't blood being flown. He just kind of wipes all that off the table and says it's all allegorical, and the conclusion is nonviolence. Of course, it is about nonviolence, but it's nonviolence to the soul, beyond the body. So that's not doing a service to anybody by trying to make the Bhagavad Gita about material, mundane nonviolence. And particularly irksome to Prabhupada was Dr. Radha Krishna's mistranslation of the verse in the 18th chapter, Manmana Bhava Madbhakta Majigi Mam Namaskuru Mamivasyasi Satam Te Pratijane Priyeshu Me. How many times? It was like 6 times. We find the word Mam in there. Krishna is saying to Arjuna, surrender unto me, think of me, become my devotee, offer your obeisances to me, and in return you'll come to me. And Dr. Radha Krishna says it is not to the personal Krishna that we must surrender, but to the impersonal inside of Krishna. That was a particularly egregious, offensive commentary on that particular verse. And the fact of the matter is that Dr. Radha Krishna, although he was one of the most brilliant minds in the world, it is said that he was appointed to be the vice president of India, not because of any political talent, but just because he was such an awesome intellect in the scholastic world. He had such a big name for himself. He was so well known that he was made the vice president of India. And yet, the last 20 years of his life, he suffered from cerebral thrombosis. So because of the misuse of that big brain, he lost the use of it during the last 20 years of his life. So one should be careful to represent the disciplic succession if one's going to comment on the Bhagavad Gita. What else?
Just one point I'd like to add, that here, apart from a person being, so Kapilji briefly said that a person needs to be eager enough to understand or listen, a student. It's also important to get it from the right spiritual master. So if you are eager, but if you've chosen the wrong person to listen to, then it's no point, you're going in the wrong direction. So it's the combination of the person who's actually giving this information and the person listening that needs to be right. Both of them need to be open and on the right path to actually take this in the correct direction.
We had a Western young man here some time ago, and I overheard him talking to a visitor, and he said, "My current spiritual master is so and so and such and such." I thought, my current, as if the spiritual master is supposed to be tailored to the disciple. They're supposed to be psychologically compatible, but actually the spiritual master is one. If Prabhupada says if they have different opinions, then at least one of them, if not both of them, are off. There can be hundreds and thousands of spiritual masters, but they would all agree that we are eternal spirit souls, part and parcel of Krishna, and some other engage us in Krishna's service. With the 100 or so ISKCON spiritual masters, of course, every prospective initiate is encouraged to hear from each and every one of them as far as possible, to meet them and to find somebody that particularly strikes a chord in them, to find somebody that inspires them more than others. But at the same time, if you compare what all the 100 spiritual masters are saying, it's no different. It's just nuances in the way they're saying it, or the degree they follow it, or their temperament. But basically, it's a standard body of philosophy which is given by Krishna to Vivaswan, passed down, again given by Krishna to Arjuna, given by Prabhupada to our disciples. And that's the beautiful thing about ISKCON. is that we have 800 centers all over the world, but every center, it's the same prasadam, same deity worship, same philosophy. You won't find any difference at all. There's so much consistency in it. And there are probably hundreds, if not thousands, of Hindu temples all over the world. And you're not going to get the same consistency when you walk through the door. You just don't know. It depends on who you meet and what their dish of the day is, and so you don't find a worldwide society with a consistent message in any other institution except for ISKCON.
The person told about the current spiritual master. Did he also say anything about the ex-spiritual master?
I didn't want to go there. I didn't want the details. Says Yasha Deve Parabhaktir Dita Deve Tata Guru Pakasante Mahat. Says that one who has unflinching faith in the spiritual master and in the process of bhakti, to such a person all the truths of the Vedic literature are revealed. Prakashante Mahatmana. So the key is faith. It's not just intellectualism or word jugglery or speculation. That's why it says you should approach a bona fide spiritual master. In other words, identify a bona fide spiritual master. So who is a bona fide spiritual master? What do you look for in a bona fide spiritual master so that you're not cheated? Prabhupada gave the example once, if you've cashed in all your assets and you have all this cash and you want to go buy gold, you had better, first of all, know what gold is. Learn how to recognize gold. Because otherwise, if you just buy gold from the first person that you meet on the street, there is such a thing called fool's gold. And you could be holding valueless minerals in your hand if you're not educated beforehand. So what are the specific qualifications of a bona fide spiritual master?
Yeah, I think in the initial part of this discussion, we talked about that someone who knows the supreme truth. So that's one quality. There are a lot of other qualities that are mentioned in the nectar of instruction, those 6 qualities, person who can control those 6 urges. But I think the one that I like the most is comes from the disciplic succession, who knows. And in your gold example, like if someone who doesn't know much about gold and giving the consultancy or advice for you to buy, then we know that it's a recipe of disaster.
What do you think, Sundari Priya?
A true spiritual master is somebody who has deep faith in Krishna, exhibits all the wonderful qualities that Krishna, he imbibes to speak only of Krishna Katha. He's steady, he's austere, he's truthful, he's peaceful. He has the ability to take you from where you are, come to your position and teach you where the truth of the Lord, and he's always surrendered to his spiritual master, the gurus, the acharyas. There's so many wonderful qualities. The whole Chaitanya Charitamrita mentions the summary of the entire the characteristics of a true sage. And when we associate with such persons, we know within our heart that if Krishna was here, he would be non-different than the spiritual master. So the feeling we have right standing in front of the altar, if our spiritual master is right there, we bow down and say, Krishna, you're right here in front of me, guiding me through and through, in and out. So that's my understanding of the qualities.
Govinda, you took initiation almost a year ago, isn't it?
Almost a year.
What was your story? What led you to Radhanath Swami? What yet led you, first of all, to know that you wanted to take initiation from an ISKCON guru, and then why did you specifically take from Radhanath Swami?
Well, as to the first question, I just got absorbed in the whole culture and in devotion to Krishna, I had this very, very powerful sense that this was the right path for me and that I wanted to pursue it. I was all in. As far as Maharaj, started reading his book, and then I'll actually tell you the moment when I knew, if I may indulge myself, because this is a very sacred moment for me. It's when, remember, I think 4 years ago, he came and he spoke at the Salt Lake Public Library. I introduced you, Caru, and you introduced Radhanath Swami. When Yugal Kishore Prabhu showed up, he was off in a side room, accessible through the doors off to the side at the front of the library. And I was sitting there waiting to make these opening comments as the library was filling up. And I was way nervous. I mean, I was really nervous because I've spoken in some situations, but with him coming and my level of anticipation being very, very high, anyway, I was nervous. So Yugal came sort of out of nowhere, and he said, "Would you?" I had read The Journey Home, and so I knew this was a very, very special person. I'd listened to a lot of his talks, and Yugal asked me, "Would you like to meet Maharaj now?" And my heart started pounding, and Radhanath Swami came in through the door down at the front. And so Yugal walked me over, and so we're right down in the front. The place is about half full, and he opens up his arms. I mean, he's never seen me before. He opens up his arm and he wraps around me in a big bear hug. And he says, "George, it's so good to meet you." And I have never experienced anything quite like that moment. All of that I said to him, "Well, I'm really, really happy to meet you too, but I'm really nervous." And he said, "Oh, so am I." Which I didn't believe that for a second, but maybe he was nervous. But at that point, my sense of anxiety was calmed. And I've heard from other disciples of Maharaj that that's known as the Radhanath hug. And if you get in that hug, you're done. So that was, I mean, I can't really put a rational explanation to it. At that point, he expressed such unconditional affection, love to me as a complete stranger in a way that was so tangible. There was like an energy there that I thought, okay, that's it. I'm cooked. So that was it.
All right.
I have not second guessed that choice, and was so grateful to be accepted for initiation a few years later. That was a good thing.
Pavan and Radhe Shyam, do you want to tell us a little bit how you arrived at the feet of your gurus, briefly?
Let's see. I first had like an interview via Skype. I came to the Salt Lake Temple. We had set a time to meet, and I knew some things about him. And as soon as he appeared on the screen with his smiling face, he's always smiling. He's always joking.
This is Hridayananda Maharaj, right?
Hridayananda.
Yeah.
And we spoke, for well over an hour, just, getting to know each other. And in that hour, I was just, like Georgia said, I was hooked. And he's, you know him. He's a funny guy. He has a great sense of humor. He knows how to deliver Krishna consciousness in a way that, he has the humor part of it too. So it's not always serious all the time. But you get the point.
Oftentimes you can make a point, you can impress somebody with a philosophical point if you deliver it with humor. People will remember it a lot better if there was a little chuckle that came along with it. I believe in that. I believe in that firmly.
Absolutely. It worked for me.
How about you, Radhe Shyam?
Oh yeah, the Prabhupada says the first condition is that the audience must be very sincere and eager to hear. So, Prabhupada's biography that Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, his guru, he said, Abhay Charan is listening very carefully, submissively, and he will be a good speaker. So that was his guru recognized in Prabhupada that he is very serious in listening. Who is listening very seriously, he will become, of course, a teacher. He says, who will become good student, disciple, he's becoming a good guru. Mm-hmm. So that is an example that I get enthusiasm from that always. So from Prabhupada's, and by Prabhupada's mercy, I get a chance to translate his books. So I always get somehow or other, I'm not an advanced devotee, but that his books, whenever you touch, you just forget whatever happens in the world. You just enter into it whenever you read or translate, and you try to do something what Prabhupada is saying in his instructions. It's very powerful. So that's, and also speaker must be in the line of disciple succession. Other thing that Prabhupada says in Perfect Question, Perfect Answers, there's a Bob Cohen, Brahmatirtha Prabhu, that who is a true bona fide spiritual master. He says, if I say this is a pen, then the disciple or listener should say same, this is a pen. If you say something different, that will be, so he says it's so simple. You just repeat what you heard from your spiritual master and cooperate. He also said when Prabhupada was leaving the world, your love for me will be shown in your cooperation. So when devotees cooperate, means they also sincere and trying to broadcast this Krishna consciousness, the instruction of spiritual master. So that is what I get enthusiasm and encouragement. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. When we often give tours, as you know, in Spanish Fork, and of course more and more so in Salt Lake City. So there's a big, almost life-size Murti of Prabhupada sitting on the Vyasasana there. And when people come before it, they ask, who's he? Or sometimes they say, is he God? Or whatever. And I tell them he's the guru. And of course, we hear the term. It's used in marketing now. Sports guru, nutrition guru, fitness guru. The words become part of our vocabulary. But it's used very lightly. It's not used in the way that it was originally intended to be used. Guru means heavy. Of course, when I was growing up, heavy meant someone that was just not very subtle, not very diplomatic, not very tactful. They were just outspoken and abrasive. That's what we meant when we said heavy. But the heaviness of a guru means laden with knowledge, like a rain cloud. See these clouds on the screen behind me. Those are clouds that are, they're not light, wispy summer day clouds. Those are potentially storm clouds, and they're laden with rain. And so in India, it gets extremely hot in the summer. Nothing's more welcome than the monsoon season, than the monsoon clouds who are laden with refreshing, life-giving rain. So living beings who are parched in this samsara, who are burning up in this world of birth, death, disease, and old age, for them, the guru is like a rain cloud who cools them and refreshes them and brings them back to life, you might say. So that's the meaning of guru. And then I say there are three things that you look for in general. After you determine that your prospective guru meets these three qualifications, then you can see which individual guru resonates with you. But first, you can't start from the platform, who do I resonate with? That's not a criterion. That's a criterion for being cheated. Who's cool? I remember in Australia, it was interesting because both my wife and I had been to India, and now we were in Australia just to earn money. We had no expectation of getting spiritual guidance in Australia. But I did get a flyer one time, and I went to this meeting, and it was a yogi. He was your stereotypical yogi. It's about his mid-30s. He had a effeminate face and long hair, and he spoke very soothingly about peace and calm. And I went on my own after work one day to hear an introductory lecture. And he said, we're having a more important weekend program on Sunday. And he invited everyone to come back to their version of the Sunday feast. In between the time that I had gone to that meeting and Sunday, I met Upendra, a Hare Krishna devotee, on the street in Sydney, Australia. He gave me a Back to Godhead magazine. And he said that God is a person, love of God is a seed within your heart, and you just need to nourish that seed so it will grow and develop into full-blown love of God. And by the way, we have a program on Sunday. So I had told Bhai Bhavi that we were going to go see this yogi the upcoming Sunday. Well, that evening I went back and I said, forget that. Cancel that. We're going to this one. This seems like the real thing to me. Okay. So what do we look for in a guru in general terms? One is they're pure in character. So remember, this is what I say to Western tourists. And if they're Mormons, if they're Mormons, I get them on my side by saying no illicit sex, no gambling, no intoxication. And most Mormons believe in that. So they're going, no illicit sex, yeah. No gambling, yeah. No intoxication, yeah. And then I say no meat eating. No, and I say, I realize that if you're a LDS, it's optional, but it's not optional with us, because you can't cause unnecessary suffering and pain and misery to your fellow creatures, and at the same time make progress in spiritual life. And so I make sure they understand that many of their bishops and stake presidencies, although they're good men, they're not gurus because of their habit of eating the flesh of animals. And then the second thing I say, first of all, pure in character, no illicit sex, no meeting, no gambling, no intoxication. The second thing I say is they must be fully conversant with the scriptures. If you have someone in your car to navigate you to, say, a small city in New Jersey from Utah, then whatever they say, whatever turns, right and left turns, or how far to go on this road, should correspond exactly with what's said in the map book. There shouldn't be any difference between what your co-pilot or your navigator says and what the map book says. So similarly, a guru is not just someone who has a good vocabulary, good education, and who can speak soothingly and calmly. No, he has to be also accurate. He has to also be schooled. He has to be educated and conversant with the scripture. And that's what impressed me about Prabhupada the first time I met him when he came to Australia in 1971. That whether Prabhupada was speaking to a room full of 1,000 people or whether you were in the room alone with him, he only spoke scripture. That was all. He was the person scripture. It wasn't like he had some downtime and talked about the latest best-selling novel or the show that he saw on Saturday night. Prabhupada, for him, all that was garbage. All that social popular culture was just garbage. He only had a taste for talking about Krishna in a small gathering of only one person or in a large hall. It didn't matter. So pure in character and fully conversant in the scripture. He's not winging it. He's not making up some interpretive philosophy, but he's actually knowledgeable in the scripture. However, there are people who are pure in character, and there are people who know scripture who still are not gurus. Take, for instance, they've read all the medical books, but that doesn't make them doctors. Just reading the books does not make them doctors. They have to, before they can get certified as a doctor, they have to train under other doctors. They have to do their residency. So similarly, even though one's pure in character, one is conversant in the scriptures, they may still not be a guru unless they have served under a guru, unless they are a disciple of a previous guru. Evam param param praptam. You have to come in the line of disciplic succession. You can't just read medical books and then hang up your sign, MD. You can't just read, Govinda knows this better than anybody, you can't just read law books and then hang up your sign, lawyer. You have to clerk in order to become a lawyer, which means you apprentice yourself under experienced lawyers, or in the case of medicine, you have to take your residency and learn from experienced doctors. And the reason is there's something that comes from the practice of law and the practice of medicine and the practice of spirituality, which is, you can't define it, you can't quantify it necessarily, but it's an instinct, it's an intuition, it's a feeling of love and devotion, it's being directed by a higher authority, it's having a sixth sense. Prabhupada told one time he was visiting just a storefront doctor for some medicine, just a storefront practitioner in his local neighborhood. And one of the neighbors walked by, and as he walked by the open door of the storefront apothecary, whatever it was, he just coughed once, and the doctor said, he's going to die within 3 days. Now, how can you explain that with medicine or out of book learning? That's an intuition. That's a sixth sense. That's direction from a higher power that comes only after having practiced for years and years and years. So you need that. One of the reasons why we would be so eager to take the remnants of foodstuff. Prabhupada himself was an old man. He didn't eat much. But the devotees would cook these big plates of Mahaprasad. They would bring them to Prabhupada. And Prabhupada would take one small pakora and say, I'm done. So then there'd be 30 devotees waiting outside the door for the Maha plate to come out. And devotees would be taking the remnants of Prabhupada's prasadam. So the reason they wanted to do that is they wanted to catch what he had. They wanted, at least symbolically, to be infected by the same love of God, the same intuition, the same supernatural, uncanny insight that he had. So that's why they wanted his physical association as much as possible. They want to eat the remnants of his foodstuffs. And if you want to become like somebody, the best thing you can do is listen to them. Hang out with them and listen to them. If you are fortunate enough to be on the planet when Prabhupada was on the planet, you took every opportunity. But even without Prabhupada being physically present, there's so many lectures, so many tapes. When you read a book, you're also listening to Prabhupada from within your mind's eye. So if the general qualifications for a bona fide spiritual master are that he's pure in character, fully conversant in scripture, and that he himself is a disciple of a previous spiritual master. When you've got all that, you know you have a bona fide spiritual master. And in fact, in ISKCON, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, I don't know, does anybody know how many there are? I'm guessing around 100 or so. And they all meet those qualifications. So then you just have to decide which one you resonate with most. And it's a fact that even if you're initiated by one, you listen to others, isn't it? You listen, you're inspired in some ways by others as well. So that's how we say the spiritual master is basically one. So who haven't we not heard from yet? Rakesh, are you still with us there? Rakesh always has interesting insights. You want to say anything? You're unmuted, so you're good to go.
Rakesh, we are not able to hear you.
According to this, you're unmuted, but we're not able to hear you. Maybe earphones.
Yes, now it's better.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, the headset.
Oh, okay, maybe my headset had some problem. Okay. Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, everyone, for the beautiful insight on this. Before I comment on our discussion from today, I want to mention about our discussion, the discussion that I and Omkar Prabhu were having in the kitchen temple yesterday. So, Omkar Prabhu, you were mentioning that Prabhupada said that if I can reduce one of the regulative principles, I will have millions or thousands of more followers, but I want quality followers. So in our discussion today, Caru Prabhu just answered that question. We were discussing that what it could be. So the LDS, if Prabhupada could have been lenient or no meat eating, there will be millions of more followers. So I just thought I want to mention that sometimes when we discuss out of nowhere, we still get the answers. Krishna knows what we need to know, and he sends the answers our way. So I thought I should mention that. And about our topic today, so Prabhuji, yes, it's very important that you find the right guru, and there is no definition of like being right or wrong. But what I understand, if we break this word guru, it's a combination of gu plus ru. So gu is nothing but the darkness and ru is light. So if somebody guru is someone who should bring you from darkness towards the light. That's what a guru means. And we were talking about like initiation. So it's interesting when we get those Prabhupada quotes in our group, Salt Lake City group, that in those quotes, Prabhupada clearly mentioned that initiation is just a beginning; it's not an end. We don't think that if somebody got the initiation that he or she has become perfect. It's the beginning, and that's how we should take it. That we need to still progress, follow the regulative principles, and follow the right things. And interestingly, Prabhupada himself has mentioned in one of the quotes that initiation is just a formality. If you are sincere and you understand the Krishna consciousness and you take it first, you keep Krishna first, and you make serious efforts to progress towards Krishna, then initiation is just a formality. He clearly mentioned that as well, and that was pretty interesting. When I saw that, I was like, wow, and Prabhupada mentioned that. So as we all know, like I am not initiated, and I don't know. I think that like how Govind Dev Prabhu mentioned, you don't like you just feel that connect, and it just happens. So I don't know if I'm ready for the initiation. I have not thought about it, but I make my sincere efforts to keep Krishna in my heart and keep Krishna in my center, and I'm definitely blessed to be in Salt Lake City, and I think I'm blessed that I'm married to my wife, and because I think she's the one who teaches me the most, because in my family they don't believe in any god or any deity worship, and that's how I was grown. That's why I didn't learn much until I got married. In my home there is no deity worship. They don't believe in God. So that's why I thank my wife, and I think it's my wife and this little one who brought me to Krishna consciousness, because when she was born and my mother-in-law was here in Salt Lake City, so that's when I was trying to find some ways to take my mother-in-law into temples, and that's when I came to know about Salt Lake City Saturday program. Otherwise, I'm here in Salt Lake City from 2011. And until 2015, I used to go to Krishna temple only on Janmashtami, or maybe once or twice in the whole year, other than Janmashtami. But I took my mother-in-law to that Saturday program. First time when she is born, she was probably just a couple months. But when I went there on that Saturday program, I immediately felt that connect, and I just couldn't stop myself, and it became a part of our life for my family. So I think I thought I'll share this realization. I definitely feel blessed, and I'm sure there is some previous karma that this kid has brought in our life, and I just love to be part of it. and maybe one day my karma will be good enough that I might find, or my guru will come and find me and bless me. Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Prabhuji, you're on mute.
Caru, you're on mute.
Getting initiated by a spiritual master is such a serious step that nobody should feel that they have to rush it. Prabhupada himself took many years before he took initiation from his spiritual master. And so I don't think any member of ISKCON should make any uninitiated person feel like they have to speed up the process. Really, it's a deliberate process. In traditional Vedic India, you had to study the spiritual master and vice versa under intimate circumstances. I mean, generally the student was living in the ashram with the spiritual master, and so they were able to look at each other, to witness each other 24 hours a day for no less a period of time than 1 year. And then they would, it could be considered if the disciple was qualified and the spiritual master was willing, then initiation could take place. So, so there's no, it's such an important thing that there's no rush. I know. As far as matrimony concerns, in the Western world, you often hear, "Well, we met on Friday and we got married on Sunday," and that's kind of like shocking if you come from Indian culture, because usually they wait a year before they announce the engagement. The engagement will take at least a year or two, and then finally the marriage will come, because it's such an important thing. How can you rush it? Some things are just not meant to do quickly. And just as Westerners get married precipitously, I think also there are many instances where Westerners have pushed for initiation. I just got recently an email from a young man that I barely know. He's barely been to the temple a few times. I know he went to Denver and he didn't stay. He left Denver. So he apparently doesn't feel like he could get a recommendation from the Denver temple. He's visited Salt Lake, and he asked me for a recommendation for initiation. And I said, I don't even know you. How can I recommend you for initiation? And so a lot of Westerners, I've noticed, they think that once they get initiation, it's done. Now it's accomplished. And I'm going to go back to home, back to Godhead. And by the way, who's your guru and who's your guru? Prabhupada says that both blind following and absurd inquiries are condemned. One should take a guru only after mature deliberation, inquiries, and one should not waste the spiritual master's time with irrelevant, absurd inquiries, but rather one should inquire seriously, first of all, how to increase one's level of Krishna consciousness, but also, and perhaps even more importantly, is how to serve the spiritual master in his mission to spread the gospel of Bhagavad Gita far and wide. Omkar, you've taken your time. I think you started chanting in 2016, wasn't it? And you took a good couple of years, taking your time, approaching the subject matter very seriously, and now you've submitted your application. I have wholeheartedly, enthusiastically given you a recommendation. But now you're just kind of sitting there. The pandemic is there, and your guru-to-be is quarantined for the last so many months in Chicago, and there's nothing on the horizon. What are your feelings in this whole situation?
Hare Krishna, Dandava Pranam. Thank you for this wonderful topic today. Yes, as you mentioned, by the mercy of the God, I was started chanting in 2016, and then I was getting introduced to the philosophy more and more. And it took me a while, like just only start of this year, I decided to take pursue initiation from His Radhe Maharaj. So it took me quite 4 to 5 years to finalize my spiritual master, and I found that period of confusion was quite crucial for me. That I was thinking, whom should I pursue? And finally I got confirmation from my heart that yes, this is my spiritual master. So that's why I tried to pursue from him. And I felt there was the quote by Srila Prabhupada that he mentioned that initiation, like initiation is a formality. Once you from heart you consider someone a spiritual master, your initiation is already done. Then whatever rest happens is just a formality. So the relationship starts when you hear from your master. So I am also hoping that very soon the initiation process happens and I get final. But yeah, from my heart, I have accepted Maharaj as my spiritual master, and I am wishing to surrender my whole life to his lotus feet. And thank you very much.
As you all know, Onkar lives at the temple, and especially during this time when Rishabh is gone for a month, he's doing so many services, cooking, receiving guests, manning the gift store. But there are so many more services that he can do after he gets initiation. He can help with the artis, he can help with the deity worship, he can help with the dressing of the deities. And so for Onkar, when he does get that formal initiation, it may be just a formality, but it's definitely going to open the doors for more service. And you can see he's knocking at the door. You know, he's eager to assume more responsibility on behalf of the spiritual master. And not only that, but he started to join our Tuesday night calls to talk about how to steer and how to plan and how to make the Salt Lake City temple the best that it can be. And which means that he's thinking about ways to improve. He's thinking about how to have more visitors and have the quality, the experience that the visitors have be a more quality experience, how to get more people involved on a congregational level, devotee level. He's preaching to them. So here's kind of, I mean, if I may say so, I don't want to embarrass you, but this is the profile of a candidate for initiation. He's doing as much as he can do, and at the same time, he's knocking on the door in a number of different areas. I see, you know, initiated devotees that don't do any deity worship. They just visit the temple just like congregational members, maybe once a week or once a month. They don't donate. You know, that's not the idea of initiation. Initiation is not the end. Initiation is the beginning. You see what I'm saying? And I think we're evolving as a society. We're evolving as in Utah, and you know, look at who's joining these calls. I mean, these calls involve a commitment. Sunday morning, we have a steady group of core people, and look at how serious our core group is. Most of you are initiates, and that means that you're acting as initiated devotees. You know, you're committed time, committed resources, commit your talents for kirtans and cookings and all like that. And those of you who are not initiated, in fact, you're all occupying the middle three screens here, and then Kamal is down. I don't see any difference between your level of inquiry and your seriousness and your service attitude between you and the initiated devotees. So yeah, I mean, in terms of your consciousness, you're basically at the same level of enthusiasm as the initiated devotees. Kamala, do you have any? We always look forward to your insightful comments. Do you want to kind of say anything to us before we move on to the kirtan here?
Thank you, Prabhuji, but I think everybody's said everything so well. I mean, there are so many qualities of gurus, and I think over here, everybody is being a guru in some form or the other. Might not be the ultimate spiritual guru which we follow, but just learning, when we learn anything from somebody, they are in a way a guru, might not be ultimate guru. So thank you, everyone.
Haribo. Govinda Bhakta was telling somebody, I forget, he was saying, in our line, Shiksha Guru is equally, if not more important than Diksha Guru as well. And so with a worldwide society and hundreds of thousands of brilliant senior devotees, there's so much instruction that one can take advantage of. And people are created uniquely. And that means different people have strengths in different areas. And so if you're anointed in a certain way, and then you can very easily find some Shiksha gurus in ISKCON, like for instance, say you like to cook. Well, there's Korma, there's Yamuna, there's so many Shiksha gurus out there that can teach you how to take your cooking to the next level. Govindadev, I'm not sure if it's the thing that's closest to his heart, but it's what he's trained for, practice law. So just ask him about the ISKCON International legal meetings and he'll light up. He's not necessarily lighting up about the law, but he's lighting up about the association of other ISKCON lawyers. See what I'm saying? So, and Sai, she loves to sew and make deity dresses and Paki. So there's so many Shiksha gurus out there who are making deity dresses and are sewing and arrange for a nice puja. That's the advantage of being in a huge worldwide society. There was this couple that I met, Waldo and Brianna from Arizona, and he said he's been listening to the Wisdom of the Sages podcast and he's interested in bhakti. And then she said she's interested in pursuing it from a scientific point of view. I immediately said, who do you think I said? Guess.
Chaitanya Charan Prabhu?
Yes. What does he call himself?
The spiritual scientist.
The spiritual scientist. I mean, perfect, right? I'm sorry you weren't there because I wanted to introduce you. She's a PhD candidate also. Yeah, I mean, Chaitanya Charan is not a Diksha Guru, and he may never be a Diksha Guru. But he's teaching people all over the world. He's deepening their Krishna consciousness, and he's making them more effective devotees and more effective preachers. He's not a Diksha Guru, and yet his contribution is amazing. It's immense. Would you agree with me, Onkar?
Yes, Prabhuji, I'm a big fan of Prabhuji, and the way Prabhuji presents Krishna consciousness to the intellectual of the society, it's tremendous. I mean, this contribution is thankless. I mean, I would say that he takes the upper cream of the society and gives them Krishna consciousness is a great task.
Yeah. And there are so many brilliant devotees out there. So we are very fortunate to be in such a massive society. Anybody want to make any summary comments before we go to the Kirtan by Rakesh and Pamela? Sai, do you want to say anything from your knitting?
She needs to say something. She has been working. She's been working tirelessly on Janmashtami fabric.
She comes and goes, when I'm at the temple. She comes and takes measurements and goes. Yeah.
I want to say, don't place it on the fabric. Thank you. I want to say just how immensely grateful I am to all of the devotees who are so technically minded, who, especially Charudas Prabhuji, who is in so many ways, the forefront of social media, of podcasting. The Krishna Temple podcast has been around for years. I remember in 2007, 2008, before podcasts were barely a thing, the Krishna Temple had a podcast, the radio station. The technology has always been such a part of ISKCON because of preaching efforts, because of the directive to preach. Technology has always been such an important part of our movement. And now this interest and this investment in knowledge in technology has been only to our advantage so that we can come together for opportunities like this. And I am so grateful to devotees around the world who have made an investment in their personal lives, their professional lives. I get to watch Govardhan Eco Village live streams from instructions of people who I may have never gotten to learn from otherwise. This is absolutely mind-blowing. Associations from, world-class Vaishnavis. even just the association of people, it's absolutely incredible. I would never have had this opportunity except that ISKCON devotees have taken such an interest in technology as an essential part of our movement and preaching efforts. And we have an excellent example of this in Charidas Prabhuji, and insisting that the radio station, that podcast, that social media has always been a part of our local community. And I'm very personally indebted to all of the devotees who have been invested in making technology part of our community. And I'm very grateful to that.
That's a great comment. And the reason I'm laughing is because in the 60s and the 70s, people said, the Hare Krishnas are everywhere. Everywhere I go, they're out in the streets chanting, and we were out everywhere chanting. Jayananda used to lead chanting parties out to different suburbs of San Francisco, and they would walk for 8 hours a day.
Oh my gosh.
People said the Hare Krishnas are everywhere. And then around in the 90s and 2000s, people used to say, where have the Hare Krishnas gone? What happened to the Hare Krishnas?
They went online. I remember those websites because
when was the last
in the late 90s.
When was the last time you heard someone say what happened to the Hare Krishnas? Because we're everywhere now.
Yeah.
And we're articulate, we're smart, we got it together. It's going to be impossible as things move on. And like I said, the internet is the street now. We used to chant, the internet is the street, and people are running across us everywhere, and we're good. We're good. We're the best scientists, the best philosophers, the best cooks, the best seamsters. We're the best in every, so it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time now before you can't turn around without Krishna, 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 Krishna in politics, Krishna in cooking, Krishna in law, Krishna in financing. Krishna is everywhere now.
Thanks to Tulsi Gabbard, she even brought that on the presidential election board.
Absolutely, yeah.
So we're everywhere.
Yeah.
And all glory to Srila Prabhupada for giving us the strength and courage to be who we are and still be Krishna conscious.
Excellent. You actually are who you are when you're Krishna conscious.
Exactly.
Yeah, true.
So speaking of Krishna, 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 Subhi's there impatiently tapping her fingers. So let's put that energy to work, shall we?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Am I audible now?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. For some reason, this mic that I used last time is not working today. So I don't know why. So we'll try without the mic. So it could be a problem with the sound. I don't know. But this mic is not working today. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Was the sound all right? Like, were you guys able to hear us?
It was okay. It broke up a bit, but we were able to follow the tune and everything. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll fix this headphone. I'll probably arrange for a new headphone next time.
Good job, though. Good job.
Thanks, everybody. Hare Krishna.
Tomorrow is Balaram Purnima, and I have this message from Advaita, this text message. Lord Balaram carries a plow, the reason for which is to cultivate the hearts of the devotees so that they become fertile and suitable for the seed of bhakti, devotion to grow nicely. Being the Adi Guru, Tattva, original Guru, he guides the devotees on their spiritual path so they can go back home, back to Godhead. So tomorrow is Balaram Purnima, and those who would like to gather in the evening, I think it's 6 o'clock, to celebrate the appearance day of Lord Balaram, are certainly welcome to do so. And Balaram Purnima is 8 days before the appearance of Krishna. Next Sunday, what do you think about the format? What should the format be? Everybody take a pastime of Krishna or something about Krishna's appearance, or maybe we can just read, maybe we just read from the Krishna book, or any ideas?
I like the idea of reading from the Krishna book.
Okay.
So that's a good idea. Like every pastime
Yeah.
has so many meanings, so many stories. And so maybe we read it and then people share their, what are their learnings and what they think about a particular pastime.
Okay. So shall we just read about the appearance of Krishna consecutively, or shall we let members pick their own, part of the Krishna book and read that? What do you think?
I think picking our own, what
Okay.
strikes us.
Okay.
We could get an interesting mix.
Sure.
Yeah.
So we have 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes each person with commentary, if you like. And it'd be good to get the children involved too. That'd be a good opportunity.
Yes, Prabhuji, Subhi is super excited.
Okay. How do we avoid?
She wants to learn something.
How do we avoid people taking the same passages?
Maybe we ask people to prepare for 2 or 3. If somebody repeats, they still have a backup plan.
Okay. So everybody have some options. All right. Thank you very much. It's wonderful to get together with you all virtually. It's virtually as good as the real thing. So appreciate your taking the time to get together every Sunday at 11 o'clock. I'm advancing in my own Krishna consciousness because of all of you, and I hope that you're benefiting as well and that you're motivated to continue doing this. Someone said yesterday we should continue even after the pandemic's over. Well, the pandemic's not going to end anytime soon, so it's not a decision that we have to make right away, but I hope to always have your association unendingly without any interruption. All right.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna.